Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another castover. This time, it's a little bit different. You may notice there's no, well, you wouldn't notice there's no replay HUD because I guess my camera's blocking it. But this is a live castover, okay, guys? The main issue with this one is I obviously won't see the amount of money they have when I click on them, but at least I'll still see some things. I guess they can ally me for vision on the selection and stuff. So actually, I'll say, can you guys ally for obs perms? And we'll see what happens there. That's the only thing that I would really need to see what's going on. And so indeed we do have that. Now, I think I have to ally them. And then, we get to see one of the new features. So I actually get to see their selection in the moment, which is pretty cool because it helps me figure out what they might be focusing on. So, you know what? That feature wasn't available. I don't think it would be available in replay. So we lose the feature of seeing how much money they have, and we gain the feature of seeing their selection. So isn't that lovely? In fact, you know, I'm judging sort of what he's up to here, this IskatuMesk's Lolly Hunter. I didn't even intro our players. I was too excited about the castover being live. This is Mesk versus Keyan in a TVZ on Terminus. And he will lose that worker, and the Mason gets away. So this is actually pretty bad for Keyan's economy. Okay, the worker will die. The reason why it's bad is because he sent one worker to scout, and he's using another one purely for the purposes of expoing. And so, now, Mesk didn't scout that, but he did probably scout no gas. And as a result of scouting no gas, like no gas harvesting at all, he probably doesn't think it's Hydras, right? It probably isn't a fast Nath rush either, because if it were, you would already see the Quasrak going down. So there's a lot of things that using the powers of intuition that I think you should be able to figure out when you're sort of scouting your opponent, seeing what they're doing. This burrowed worker, I'm not sure what's up with that, but... I can... LMAO, I'll not select stuff. So I assume that's probably where he figured out the worker was, and I will have to worry about selection then. Think of it as a spotlight, guys. It's like me figuring out whether or not something is there. So basically the reason why that probably affected the game is because you can see the selection of the borrowed unit. So that was probably where it was happening. So, okay, I will forbid myself from selecting units, I guess, that are in the middle of a battle. Or if I do, I shouldn't select cloaked or burrowed ones. That's my lesson, so to speak. Otherwise, it just means that, hey, I'm paying attention. I'm watching what you're watching. So this vulture is going to sneak by the static defense, but all is okay because he can just sort of hide behind this. He could also try to turn on the vulture, but that's probably not very advisable. And the mine there, I'm not sure if it's within range. Yeah, it sure is within range of the larva. That's actually potentially quite bad, because now he has nothing to build, you know, Hydras with. He can build it from back here. And he will indeed just burrow. So Mesk is decidedly ahead now. This macro play happening. That mine could have popped the egg. It's a little bit too far. So what people don't know is that actually the egg will take a mine hit and still live, but it only takes like maybe 5 or 6 other shots from a vulture. And behind that, we do have 2 Goliaths as a follow-up, which is pretty big. A 3rd Goliath on the way. So if that masses up at the doorstep, 100% will end up killing the single Hydra and the 2 circuits. So we just have to hope that Keyan can defend that aggression. He is obviously worried about the mines, and he can't do anything about the mines with only 1 Hydra, right? You need more than that to pop it. So, you know, you can kind of just ignore that for now and keep harvesting resources. I assume he doesn't have any gas for more Hydras. And now, if he loses this Hydra, all is indeed lost, for sure. So he needs to keep that Hydra alive. I don't think he realizes that he still has some workers that are burrowed. And yeah, the Hydrock then is going to get popped. Well, it's not the fastest pop. I just accidentally selected a mine. That was revealing info, but you know, Keyan saw the exact position anyway, so. Okay, he's gonna try to, oh, that was brutal because, you know, couldn't even cancel it in that time. So clearly he didn't have any gas because he wasn't actually able to build anything other than an I0 core. He does have a Hydra morphing at this base. That will be his last combat unit though. That is not great for the future of his time here in this game, and it might just end up being GG. Now, the one saving grace he has, if he has a saving grace at all, is that you know, he's got 2 bases, so he can get more resource income or whatever, but he's still got 3 workers that aren't harvesting. This is not going to look too hot. Now Mesk will discover that this base exists. If he strikes while the iron is hot, oh, he killed the Hatchrosk in the main. This game is over. I'll just say it right then and there. The circuits take too long to build, and the Vulture did scout. Probably because Keyan wasn't GGing, and he was like, bro, why aren't you GGing? So, okay, these 2 units coming in to reinforce. Like, there's an outside chance that Mesk could somehow fumble the rest of this. He only kills the Izira core. He doesn't get a single worker kill. These workers can unburrow. Now, it's actually 4 burrowed workers that are just chilling there. And again, there's a spider mine over here. I'm not sure if Keyan remembers it. I will do my best to not select it. I'm assuming Mesk has a ton of money saved up. He only has 1 Goliath in each thing queued up, so it's not like he's dumped all of his money into that. So, you know, what's he building? He's building a barracks. He's probably trying to spend his minerals. It might seem like a mistake to macro at this point, but if you macro, you kind of have like the safety of knowing that your opponent is like, you're just basically, that's like the disciplined way to win the game is by doing it that way. So, you know, double gas, less mineral income for sure. Losing the Hatchrosk in this space is probably what seals Keyan's fate, but it's not over until it's over. So we might be 6 minutes in, and there might be, you know, as many Goliaths being rallied down there. Oh, actually, it's only 4 Goliaths and 2 Vultures, and they're not being rallied just yet, and the mid bays on the way. If people don't know, med bays are actually really good at... when you mix clerics with Goliaths, they last way longer, especially versus like Hydras. But at this point, there's only, you know, a second Hydra now coming, but there's only 1 Hydra that even exists. There is the Circuith, but it's not placed in a way that's actually going to be tricky or anything. Obviously, the bunker will shield them from something. I mean, you're not really going to land. I guess you could land it up here. You can't land it anywhere down here. There's no room. Kind of weird that... Oh, okay, he just built that here. And that's even going to be a Circuith. I wonder if he's anticipating like a drop or something with that Circuith, or if he just wants it so that he can like defend it. It's a weirdly placed for that to be where he wants it to be. And it's obviously an expenditure of minerals that you would hope you wouldn't have to get. But he probably just has more minerals than gas at this point, even though he's only harvesting from... Maybe not, I don't know. I'm trying to intuit his amount of resources based on that. Now, this Goliath, this bunker doesn't actually have anything in it, as far as I can tell. And obviously the bunker being set down here isn't really going to do much for... he even clears out the... Yeah, he's clearing out the creep. I don't know what he plans to do with that. He's got a bunch of units that are not rallied. Not rallying. A bunch of spider mines being placed here. So, you know, basically keeping tabs on if there's any move outs over here. Now, you can use this ridge to harass the gas structures themselves, but you need a pretty good amount of range to be able to harass the workers that are harvesting from the structures. So because there's no cap here, you can't actually really do much harassment. Now, maybe a Goliath in a bunker could do it, because the Goliath has 7 range, and then the bunker gives you +1, and then the height gives you +2. Hydra is burrowed in over here. Not a bad idea. I mean, maybe you would want to go a little bit farther out, but you probably don't feel like you can now. I'm pretty sure there's nothing in that bunker. I'm not really sure what it's there for. It might just be there as a transport. And okay, the burrow is revealed. He doesn't get a single kill. Okay, he could have pushed for a single Goliath. And yeah, there you go. Now it's starting to get loaded in. There are no clerics being rallied down. And I'm kind of perplexed about the Goliaths, as a matter of fact, or the lack of Goliaths relative to the number of vultures. Like, there's not really a point for vultures here. If Keyan was daring, he would have popped his own Circuith and tried to rebuild it. But they do take a little bit of time to do that. So he's also shown his hand with this burrow. So I'm actually wondering if it's not a little too audacious. But he's redone his gas mining now. Redoubled his efforts, so to speak. This is an interesting situation. I was expecting the Ovoleth at some point, because of the gas harvesting, sort of ballooning up now. He's got the ability to do that. I mean, it's like possible that he's able to bust out of this, but... I really feel like it's not the case. And Mesk is just so puzzled. He's like, wait, this guy's really got like no... He's got like no hidden base anywhere? Or what? Like, what's going on? So there you go. Like the Ovoleth obviously revealing quite a bit there, and also getting shot down for quite a bit. So obviously if that were to pop super quickly, that would be heartbreaking. But the double Goliath in the bunker obviously has a pretty good range in that respect. So... there you go. I am not 100% sure if Mesk is going to test the hypothesis I had with the Goliath here, but I do think that will be enough to at least attack this Circuith, depending on where it lands. He might not have vision. Okay, yeah, all right, never mind. Hypothesis tested. You pretty much need some tier 2 unit over there. That's probably for the better. He is going to... This is cute. This is clever. And you know what? If he takes a corner base instead of this exact base, which he seems to be trying to do, I would just unload the worker and then path there because you might need the Ovaleth, right? Now, the other thing that's interesting to note is the Quasrock pool. This means Nathracors are coming. And Sirens were also coming. I was going to say police, but it sounded like a fire truck, actually. Fire engine. Speaking of engine, how about Brood Wars? Not very good, is it? On fire, perhaps you could say. Now, that being said, a lot of Hydras. Pretty good thing, like hard to bust, especially with Vultures. Vultures are mostly just going to delay your Goliaths. And, you know, yeah, he's going to see that number of Hydras and say, okay, well. Now, he knows what detection, what is needed for detection, right? He knows that. He also knows that if he had a bunch of Vultures that had mines, right, he could just rush in and lay the mines, and the mines would also pop the Hydras, like unburrow. So it's sort of like, they wouldn't force them to unburrow, but if you unburrow, oh, I shouldn't do that. If you unburrow the stuff there, yeah, it gets pretty next level. So this base is going down, so that's pretty good. Obviously, Mesk was also doing an expo, but he seems to have... Okay. He knows that I saw it too, so that's good. I can do funny communications with I can communicate in Morse code with the people. Pretty good. Now that being said, we just have to wait and see what goes down. Man, I like this. This is now here, right? His structure's finished. He might be able to do some harvesting, but there's a okay. The Vulture is on the way over here. It's not on the way to this corner base. If it changes avenues, that would be something. But yeah, like, okay, so far and look at this morass of Nathracors. By the way, like, very limited defense. Another push going in. They pop the Ovaleth, right, which seems like maybe a victory. He does lose 3 Goliaths, so not an even trade. Honestly, this might end in such disaster if Mesk doesn't win this game, man. I don't know what will happen. Like, like, I don't know. He didn't get any info inside the base, right? Like, how could he? Because of all of this. I don't know what I hope to see his reaction live. This base is just end up proxy for Nathracors. Like, it's not. It even got a Kagrin into a Larvosk. Like, he's just using this as an outpost. This is incredible. This is next level. Now, okay, an Atlas is going down, but it's going to be a while before that finishes. It's also going to be a while before you build Sentinels. Why would you even spend money on that in the first place when, you know, you don't expect there to be a threat whatsoever? The Antseal is good because obviously it provokes the units to, like, it forces them to unburrow, but it also defends you as you come in here. It's like a mini D-Matrix on an aura. And this is funny. This is what he's spending his effort and attention on, guys. Okay. Now move the Antseal over, and maybe you got something there. Obviously, he's got the Cleric there as well. That could also work. Honestly, I mean, Keyan might have to pull the Naths just to defend this push, which would show his hand, obviously, more than he wants to. Because he can sort of very slowly creep forward. This is like a funny version, a low-tech version of a mech push or whatever. And you know what? He's getting machine shops. Which, if he's able to then build Madrigals instead of Phalanxes, like, that's the thing. He's probably going to want to build Phalanxes just to get rid of all this, like, just to siege this through. So if he doesn't, like, then it becomes a real big problem, right? He is building more Watchdogs. Like, oh, okay, and he has a Sentinel even over here. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder what tipped him off or whatever. Maybe he's just expecting, like, there could be a base that he didn't see, and there also, you know, could be something else. I don't know. Those units weren't being selected, so I assume they were just rallying over. But there's so many fucking Nathracors, dude. If this Vulture had been placed here, it would have actually seen the Naths, and that would have shown Keyan's hand. But even so, I'm a little bit more like, you know, okay, hey, this Antseal is going to spot it. But is he going to spot the Naths? I don't think so. I think the Naths snuck out, and that's a fucking ocean of Naths. But guess what, dude? Madrigals. There you go. My stress is relieved. No, Miss. Don't let the Madrigals get doven on. Turn around. Yeah. And you're going to have to kite like your life depends on it, bro. All right, well, there goes one. All right, there goes another. Hey, don't worry. There's more coming. And if he can put the Antseal over them to protect them, that would also be ideal, right? There you go. Yeah, Don't worry, this is an ocean of evaporation now. There you go. He's done it. He's lived. He has survived. He man, I can't believe it came down to that, dude. I had zero confidence in Keyan's ability to win the game. But ironically, if he went like a little bit further, and there's the mine pop for the Hydras. Yeah. Oh, that one hurts too, man. That's painful. The Avaleth was in the back of the base too, so otherwise obviously would have been able to do something, but it's got to be considered GG now. I mean, I've said that, but I said that before too, and he has like, he has a bunch of units over here. There is a bit of a move out, but he's, rebuilding defenses, and he didn't lose any critical infrastructure. He's got all of these madrigals, which can be microed against Hydras as well, although it does take a little bit more finesse, or just overwhelming numbers. And it's obvious, it should be noted as well that this satellite base here, which was revealed, is now going to be revealed to have Hydras, and so that will tip Mesk off to there being a threat. That base is a lot harder to defend against as well, considering there's, all of these open... I mean, there's 2 chokes, but there's still... That's one more choke than you had before. An evacuation of workers has happened. Keyan still does not want to admit defeat. His Nathricor swarm could have done the trick. Honestly, I think as soon as he sees the madrigals, he does well to kill the first 2, but I think as soon as that happens, he has to probably dive on the workers and just like force the madrigals to awkwardly path and move around. Like, look at this base. Mesk would have had to move all of his madrigals down into this direction, right? And it looks like he even preemptively swapped over to the other mode to deal with the Hydras with longer range. That's good. But yeah, like if he dove on the resource line, GG's going to be called, but like that would have been at least given Keyan a little bit more power in that. So there you go, the first game that we casted live, and what a game it was. We are back. This series on Terminus. I'm just going to play a bunch of games on Terminus when I put it through its paces. Figured why not do it in a live series. So I hope you don't mind us journeying to the same map again and again. Of course, it doesn't seem like the players themselves mind. Otherwise, they probably would have complained about the map. But nonetheless, if you have thoughts on the map, post them. I do feel like the fact that you got these chokes, you got the, obviously this position we saw end up being quite used. Although not in a way that I thought. I just figured like if you were going to try to harass in here or whatever, you can kind of try to wall this off or make it an annoying choke to path through. Nonetheless, we do have this time Keyan in the top and Mesk in the bottom. They're scouting a little bit. I mean, this scout is super early. I think this might have been like the first worker that he built, or maybe the second worker. Maybe the second worker. That being said, they will pass each other. Nobody's using these just yet. I think we'll have to wait for the map to stick in people's minds a little bit more. And I thought maybe he was hugging the cliff here, trying to avoid actually doing much scouting. But there she goes. So I actually have been allied, so I should ally back. And I'm not sure if I've been allied by Keyan. Yeah, I have not been allied by Keyan just yet, so I'm not sure if he will remember. If he doesn't, that's also fine. Although it would be pretty cool to get that. So I guess I'll just quickly send him a message. Can you ally for Soul Preview? I hate to annoy them when they're trying to focus on stuff, obviously, but you know how it is. Looks like I have it now. So, oh my god, he's fucking them up! There it is, the surround, very dirty. So, we are getting a hatch first again. Keyan does seem to want to try to make this one work. Now, I'm not sure if he saw this fulcrum. It's placed in a very funny position all the way at the bottom there. But he would have scouted gas, so he probably knows that there's a fulcrum somewhere. He might not know exactly where. You could also be going for, like, Barracks Cyprian. That obviously does require it as well. And there's a Quasrock and a Kagran afterwards. So he's being a little bit more, like, he's sort of trying to run back the build order from before. He's actually going to do 2 Kagrans. I'm not sure. So this obviously makes a pretty big impact on your eco, and because the Quasrock is here, that means that he's okay with not harvesting gas, right? He does keep his worker alive, and it does return to the base, so it will be mining once again. This Circuit will protect the workers against the Vulture, and it is done. This one will be done in just a few seconds now, whereas this one is a pair of Zethicors. So obviously now that you need 3 hits from a single Vulture in order to kill a Droleth, it makes sense that you would not be able to worry too much about. Like, it just makes sense to... Uh-oh! There we go. The Suicide Pact. Okay, I like that one. That ended up working quite well. So there you go. That's more than fair. You always, I mean, for one, it's half the cost for minerals, but you always trade 2 Zethra cores for a vulture, just in general. And because the Quasrock was scouted, a Watchdog is sort of forced, I suppose. Although he would have maybe not taken notice that there was no gas harvesting. There could have technically been like 2 on this, and I don't know if the Vulture would have seen that. So, you know, he could have just been like, I mean, that would have been a mega mind game, you know what I mean? Like, the idea that, oh, I'm just going to harvest because I know you won't be able to scout that. Like, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not sure if anybody's on that level yet. Now, this time around, we have a couple of Cyclops and a Goliath. Cyclops are the AoE choice for mech. However, they do have a drawback, which is that, especially against melee units, which obviously Nathra are, the AoE is not friendly safe, right? So the AoE will damage your own units. It can even damage the Cyclops that it fires the shot. So based on that alone, that gives you pretty good indication that, you know, stuff, like, things could go wrong, is all I'm saying. And you know, this also applies to Zethra cores, because obviously the Cyclops can damage themselves as the Zethra cores attack. But this position is pretty safe from that. So this is good against ground armies in particular, and also gives you a little bit of sight, obviously. The Cyclops will pull back at the last second, and this Goliath could, as a result, get overwhelmed. It looks like Keyan exactly wants to do that, so he's just going to complete the surround, and off it goes, while the Cyclops are in a bunker. Oh, they're going to try to go for these ones as well. They might be able to get at least one of them. Yeah, not really a surround, but semi-surround or whatever. And just one more shot there from the Cyclops should be getting off to kill this Zethra core. Although he's one hit away, so Keyan doesn't know that because he hasn't selected the unit. But there you go. He's able to finally put it to bed. He didn't know how low it really was. He was trying to surround it, thinking it was healthier than it really was. So 2 vultures coming out now to deal with the Zethra cores. Obviously, at this point, there's really not much of a worry here. It's actually a really good job that the Zethra core ended up dying before the pulse could hit, because that meant that it didn't really help the Mason die, but obviously the Mason eventually died anyway. So only 1 worker killed is not the end of the world, but it was a big economic cost, losing 200 minerals and 50 gas in the form of a Goliath, especially when your opponent is up on a base, especially with all this gas. Like, that can be pretty dangerous. So at this point, Keyan should either go for a different tech structure, and there's the Hydrock then, or he should be going for, you know, a tech up or something. He is going to take a 3rd base, and you know what? There's a response from Mesk. He's not content to just sort of sit behind idle. He's planted some mines. There are some Nathra cores, but of course they're going to meet the Cyclops in the bunker, the double Watchdog, a 3rd one on the way. Mesk is well insulated. He's got 2 Goliaths already, and these vultures are indeed going to try and strike. He doesn't get away with any kills, but he shuts down a couple of mining opportunities here. So that's obviously a case where if this was the old health of the workers, that would have resulted in a kill. No Nathra core strike just yet. They are coming in now, and the Goliaths can easily respond to this. Only a single Watchdog going to be going down here, and maybe a couple of workers. Assuming, yeah, he just micros them away, and he's fine. He loses a single worker. So the Nathra core is much less successful than Keyan probably wanted them to be, but now he can put his gas to use on the Hydras. Couple mines going down in cheeky spots. Or maybe just one, looks like. And this is funny. He's just going to go ahead and build a single... Yeah, okay. He's borrowing to avoid the pain. But obviously, he's also... like, I think Mesk could have maybe sniped this before it started. The Hydras are going to come in and deal with that. Okay, well, they do also take some damage. Now, I'm not sure if Mesk realizes, but that Hydra is a little bit low. I don't know that a Vulture would be able to deal with it, especially if it ends up being microed. Good job on Keyan for remembering that that is indeed a borrowed worker. He has his 3rd Hatcherosk up in the other spot, but not yet doing anything with it. So I'm sure he'll remember that it exists at some point. And meanwhile, it looks like, actually, Mesk wants to confirm that there is a base over here. So he does confirm that this base was taken. He doesn't actually know about the right side base, but he probably can surmise that based on the lack of military units, there probably was some investment there. Now, what does Keyan respond with? Is he content with just leaving this base to die? He probably did see the series of Goliaths, but he's just massing up a group of Hydras that can defeat them. So... that won't, I mean, like, they're not even going for the Hatcherosk here. Obviously, if he had some air units, he could just come in and snipe the Vulture. The Vulture has no more mines, so there is that as well. And so, yeah, he can just walk up this ramp, good splitting this Hydra so that it doesn't deal damage to everybody else. That one is not true for that last one there. But it's still going to be enough, even if he just sort of very lazily A-moved. He snipes out the Cyclops, so no more AoE. The Vulture's down for no more harass, and this Goliath will fall. Maybe taking a single other worker with it, or a single other Hydra, but the answer to that is all no. Skither cores are out. The tankier air unit that is available. Not the tankiest, but tankier than Naths for sure. And also entirely single target. You'll mostly see them as a supportive backline, as opposed to something that is super useful for harassment. And the bunker goes off as well. So still no second base from Mesk, but it looks like he's going to go ahead and put one down here. He's avoiding the guidance here, which gives you a little bit more gas mining. I don't think there's any reason to do that, but he can lift it off after, so it's not the end of the world. And with that said, the bunker is going to take position up here. Now, you'll notice this is like a really awkward choke, and I'm thinking that this is fine, like it's kind of deliberate, but you could also imagine it being, pulled down one or something to offer a little bit more maneuverability. But as it currently stands, it allows you to like sort of anti-rush or something. Zerg can obviously spread creep down to it from over here. It's a little bit of a distance for them. And indeed, that's exactly what Keyan is actually doing, is making sure that his creep is being spread. Pay no heed to this minimap stuff. That's just spider mines, a watchdog going down there just for advanced scouting. And it looks like we're going to settle in for a little bit of a longer macro game. Neither of the players finding incredible success in the early game. A little bit of destabilization, a little bit of eco damage, and like sort of frazzling of your opponent. But really, I think at this point, you have to say Keyan, with the extra gas, is definitely in a better spot. That will result in a couple of deaths, and only 2 Hydras are left over. And the Skither cores are just going to get ambushed immediately by the Goliaths. So that attack also not really doing too much. Maybe filling Mesk with some sense of like, oh, I know what's up now. But yeah, not 100% sure what he's up to now. What's he going to think as a result of that, right? He's still setting up this base. It just finished. He's not lifting it off, so he'll just deal with lower gas return rate. / efficiency. And of course, we will see the Goliaths, the Cyclops, just chilling out here. Some more spider mines being put down. It's always good to continuously do this when you have Mech Terran, just because it allows you to get so much advance warning of like when your opponent is moving out. Obviously, air units buck this trend in some cases, although there's some spots on maps that like air units are usually liable to path over. Like even over here, if you put a mine over here in like this position or like this position, and somebody's trying to flank you down, you can actually get an advance warning of that. So even then, mines can be your savior. However, it goes a little bit of both ways, right? I mean, it forces the Ovaleth. The Ovaleth is actually out, so that's pretty good on Keyan's side, and he will see that these mines have been refreshed, and that will give him some information therein. He's this Kagran colony is being popped. Interesting choice. So you can actually destroy these if you want to fit, static defense over here or whatever. My original vision was that maybe you would be able to destroy them, and as a result, if you were to destroy them, you would need to destroy them in order to access the base, like build it at all. But I decided against that mostly because I didn't think it was going to be particularly interesting to do that. So. They're not 100% sure. I could obviously just shift them up and move them that way, but time will tell. Now, I'm not sure if Mesk knows this, but you can build on neutral creep and, of course, allied creep, no matter what your race is. So this doesn't actually block Terrans from expanding here, but it does make it a little bit harder for Zerg to set up like advanced micro bases or whatever outposts in the middle of the map without having to build a Hatrosk first. So he's just increasing the amount of time you have to expend. And actually, Keyan will spot that this creep is receding, and so as a result, it must mean that he's getting owned. Iral Iris going down. Is there an Atlas? There is an Atlas, and it will be a little bit later, which obviously is just indicative of the fact that Keyan has more gas, although he's only harvesting these ones with 2 workers instead of the 4 that would be fully saturated. But he's got these, and these are upgraded. This one is upgraded in his main. So realistically speaking, he has 1, 2, 3 upgraded gas. You'd say 3.5, and then I don't even know what you would count that as, but he's got like somewhere in the order of 4.5 gases that are fully capped in terms of income. Maybe 4.25 or some shit like that. If you guys are mathematicians, you can figure it out yourselves. If not, well, let me just say it's probably not that important. This is interesting. We are actually going to see the middle of the map be taken. As long as the pylon remains, this crucible will also remain, and as a result will increase the larva generation speed. It'll increase a few other things. Like the ability for attack rate for defenses and stuff. I actually considered placing more than one stacked, so you would actually benefit from more than one version of it or something, which would increase the value. That might be something that I think about doing. I could even see maybe putting one in the middle as well on this, like, just obviously placing it in an impathable area. I mean, technically, you don't see, like, stacked stuff, so it's kind of like an immersion break or whatever. But I do find, like, you know, in that case, it's just supposed to be a map feature, and people usually just go along with it. I mean, if anything, to go by with Brood War, where Brood War maps just have you fucking, like, oh, let me just place all these neutral disruption fields and stuff. Like, all right, well. Nonetheless, more watchdogs being put down. The Atlas is done. Machine shops whirring away with phalanxes. And this is mostly because Keyan has shown that at this point he mostly wants to achieve, you know, a ground-based army. He had a couple of Skither cores, and he is mutating some Calculisks, which are obviously going to be great to deal with stuff like phalanxes. That being said, the phalanxes will chew through a lot of this stuff. So it depends on whether or not Mesk preemptively sieges. He has no map control now in the middle. No eyes on anything. He has a couple of, like, yeah, this mine is obviously for scouting, like, air units moving around, right? This vulture here, just to see if there's any paths there. And this vulture here just revealing... well, you know, it's really funny. Keyan uses the Calculisks to fire back on that. I don't know if Mesk will have seen that, or if he just says, oh, I guess it's dead. So if he's paying attention, then that actually reveals some of the tech that he has to worry about. But he has watchdogs in a few spots. This is unfortunate. I'll have to fix that. I'll just quickly send a message to... we'll have to fix the gas. Sorry about that. And then... that is that. I don't know. They don't know that I'm only speaking directly to them, so it might end up being a little confusing. Now, we do have the some madrigals behind it. That's obviously to deal with the air. That makes a lot of sense, right? If the Calculisks are the threats. And, you know, he should see this now. He didn't, like, react via selection, so I have no idea if that's something that was real. But, yeah, we do see this happening indeed. I'm not sure what the destruction sound was. And the pylons didn't go down in the middle. Maybe something was canceled. Yeah, this CC might have been canceled, or it doesn't look like it was a CC. It was something else. I don't know. Not sure, but a watchdog is in place to just as scouting information, right? So that's pretty good from Mesk to, like, keep the map control going in that sense. He actually, I'm looking at this and I feel like he could have more workers in general. You know, I think he's only harvesting from this ridge with one gas. Yeah, one guy gas. That's a little bit of unfortunate, like, error on his part. And I don't know. He hasn't even put another worker on this gas, for example. So, yeah. Not only did he get owned by the gas placement, but he also got owned in a few other spots. Now, that Skither core actually does go down. It might get a Calculus too. It does. So that's actually pretty good for starting to thin out the herd. That being said, there's a bunker with a couple Cyclops in. If Keyan doesn't notice that yet, he's starting to realize now, but it's a little bit too late. His Skither core-based front line is out, and we do see a single Dirge pop here. That'll just deal a little bit of damage. It's not much when it's only one. But Keyan playing the macro game, he's actually taken over the middle, and he's starting to harvest resources from the middle base that he already has, and as he's also taking the middle in general. I would love to see a game where actually, like, both players take either one of the middle bases, but they're probably too condensed for that. It's more like if you can at least deny one of them, you know, that can be something that you get. Keyan also taking what was originally, in my mind, the third for this player, but as we've actually seen, people will take different bases depending on what they actually want, right? Both of the players ended up taking a gas-specific base. Mesk's still on 2 bases, right? To Keyan's what now? He's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's, I mean, this one's, like, yet to be operational, but he's got 2 more on the way afterwards. So his army has to hit really hard if what he wants to do is win. If he wants to, you know, win, he kind of needs to win now, or he needs to, like, transition out of this and into something else. The front line with the Zethicores and Vorvicores for this fight really paid out dividends for Keyan. Now, the Calculisks are almost all dead, and there's Phalanxes here, and as well as a huge backup of Madrigals. So, actually, maybe one of these Phalanxes will die. The rest of the units should get owned. He's actually going to withdraw these 2. Not able to kill that Phalanx. Maybe if he went in a little bit more, he could have committed to just clearing that out. Because maybe Mesk doesn't rebuild them, and then maybe the next ground attack is actually more successful. You can't really say too much just yet, but we can say one thing. There is an Irulent Avoa out. Now, people probably don't even know what that means. So the Iral Iris is the initial tech, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to upgrade your structures into, for example, the Leveril Pond from the Quasrock Pool, Gorgel Swamp from the Hydrock Den. You have a little bit of an additional skirmish out here. This one could have been in Furia mode instead, but it was the tempo was down, and so it was firing in the backline perhaps. Could have been maybe wiping out the Skither cores here, but at this point the creep is revealed. I think Mesk knows he's kind of in deep shit because now he has only 2 bases. He is going to take another one. He's got this idle worker here ready to take another. And so, yeah, we're actually seeing some tech stuff. Now, there is a Muthrock Spire going down. So that is the first thing that is enabled by the Evoa that Keyan is building. So the other things include a few other spots. Okay, these vultures are actually going to reveal this corner base. At this point, Keyan is basically like trying to take a bunch of bases, and then whatever survives is what he pays attention to, right? He might actually send a couple Skither cores out to clear this. I mean, there's only, like, really, there's not much here. And Mesk is spending a lot of APM kiting it, you know, thinking, okay, well, maybe he's just not even using it, right? So, yeah, who knows? Who knows? But that being said, the Evoa enabling Muthrock Spire means we might actually see Mutaspam. We are seeing a Matraval Nest as well, so Keyan's actually exploding into a huge amount of tech options. He does have the gas from this, which is minimal, but he has a ton of minerals if he wants to go for that. He hasn't harvested gas from this base just yet. And if you're wondering what the aura is on the Excision, it's just HP regen. Don't get excited. Crucibles don't also increase resource yield or whatever. Bunch of Hydras moving out to meet these vultures. Nothing too crazy. A Circuit reveals itself on the high ground, but there's no anti-air defenses. Not that Mesk even has any air. He could go for an Fountainhead from the Atlas, which would unlock Starport, as well as the Captaincy and a few other things. So, yeah, the Mantle is the other one. This base soon going to be found out, but there's some mines over here. They are on attack moves, so they might just end up getting popped. Yep, they will. Yep. But that should signify to Mesk that, hey, my forces are out of position. I do not have a spot to do that in. I should probably expand to the safer one down here. So he might just float the CC that direction. Madrigal's on the way to respond, presumably all on the down tempo. I actually don't, yeah, tempo down. You can actually see it on the status. This is visible to your enemies as well. If you see an enemy Madrigal, you can also see what that is. Still tempo down? Still tempo, now tempo up, okay. I was waiting for the switch over. There's no read yet. With how useful they end up being and how commonly they seem to be used now, I should probably invest in some visual reads to indicate that. So obviously it was always intended that they would have like some sort of visual transformation sequence. The CC is actually floating back, so Mesk really wants the minerals, it seems. And he still has not taken the space in the bottom middle. Some idle workers here and there. Mutas flocking to the base. Will we see Muta's Dozen in CMBW? That would be the ultimate title for the longtime viewers, and most people would just not know what the fuck that means. We actually have some Convolusks out. I'm sure it's been a while since some people have seen that unit, so exciting to get into this situation. We have this longer game going. The players trying to see what they can do. Starpad going down probably for detection, but could also be for Wraiths. You can scout with Wraiths because they're permacloaked. They don't detect like Witnesses do for Protoss, but they obviously aren't going to trigger any sort of response from random units here. That was unfortunate for the mines, but that's okay. They didn't burrow in time to evade the Bactylisk's wrath. Still no base over here. Mesk maybe forgot that worker entirely. And obviously is continuing to rally out some units. Got a Phalanx, or 3 Phalanxes on the way. So he must be... maybe that's why he wants the minerals, is because Phalanxes are 200 minerals. And obviously he's also spending 200 minerals on Sentinels every now and then, so it makes a lot of sense. Terran does end up getting more mineral hungry with their mech-oriented, like, safe playstyles. And obviously it also gives you the opportunity to expand again a little bit easier. It is kind of wild when you think about like 2 Goliaths is the command center, like in terms of minerals, right? And so it is interesting that people still end up building them and they still end up being a good choice. I'm trying to click on what that's building. That's a Sentinel. Still not too many mines being laid out around the map, but we do have a little bit more map control on the sides for Mesk now, so he's starting to correct that error. But the longer this goes on, with this base not even being touched in the middle, these 2 bases, the harder it becomes, right? These are totally sealed off, these pathways. You don't get into it. I was thinking about opening up stuff behind them where the Crucibles are. Just like I was thinking maybe that would be kind of interesting, but in actuality, doesn't really end up working out. Now, this is an angle that Keyan clearly has not anticipated. The idea of somebody entering in from the back. So Mesk is sort of pointing at some of the flaws, and now the Mutas are going to be revealed. I'm not sure... Okay, the Convolusks are also going to be revealed. I don't know if I really don't know if Mesk knows what those do, and I don't know if he knows what structure is required for either of them. Does he know that they're actually the same thing? Not sure. But yeah, definitely something to be somewhat scared of. You can respond with just a bunch of phalanxes, and obviously madrigals can help you take care of the mutas. They're 90 HP, but they're a lot easier to spam out once you acquire the structure. I think they're only 50 gas or something like that now, as opposed to 100. They might still be 75, in which case maybe that should be rectified. But they're also, they can be pretty powerful. So we'll see how they work exactly. A big army being massed up here. We even got Sikralisks out. That's a unit that I wish I didn't have to see because obviously the visuals of them are pretty ugly. And Protathalor. So the Protathalor is like an artillery infantry type unit, you could imagine. Of course, visually I would love for Zerg to not look like humanoids at all. But sometimes you just got to do it. I definitely am taking Keyan to win this game, just judging by his tech level, his army. He hasn't invested the insane amount of gas that it takes to tech up to tier 3 yet, but neither then has Mesk, and he also hasn't gotten a Fountainhead. So I think this might be the first time he's really getting to this territory where he actually has to, defend and expand and tech up and yada yada, but to this level in a 1v1, right? A couple of vultures are indeed going to swing out over here and just sow some discord, sow some chaos in the ranks of Keyan's army. His army also still trying to move around. Some Matroleths here. Obviously, what you can do with Matroleths is parasite your own army for brood spawn. Against Phalanxes, it's not really going to be too impactful. It's probably a little bit better to parasite their units. Parasite is completely different in CMBW. It doesn't reveal them or anything. It just tells you when they die, you end up getting some interesting results. Now, the Madrigals are here. They will help to shred the mutas. And obviously, the mutas are trying to fight that. That's not a really good fight. Like, you can't really split against Madrigals because of the up-tempo stuff. The Keyan might end up feeling a little bit affronted by that. But nonetheless, hey, he might have popped another one if it doesn't get repaired. Oh, I probably gave it away by selecting it. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, a bunch of Izira cores here. You could mutate those into Tethzora cores if you wanted to give them a little bit more beef and a little bit more single target damage, which would be useful against Phalanxes. At this point, like, he's just got this giant army of a bunch of things, but unless he micros well in the fight, especially since he's lost his mutas, which were no small investment, mind you, he might end up taking a few volleys, right? Now, the other thing, though, is that can Mesk even escape his base area, right? He has been able to hold this area and continue mining from this base. He's set this base up, but still hasn't looked at it for a while. This is like the base that keeps escaping him somehow, which obviously has 2 geysers, so it's a little unfortunate. Does have an Anseal, mostly for detection, probably looking for burrow traps. We are seeing some parasites. One thing you can do with Matroleth, obviously, is proc Ensnaring Brood. And so we're going to see that little preparation happen. And again, the Anseal, I'm not sure how much of it was even being seen over here, but it can also spot for the Phalanxes. There's only a single Phalanx really within range. A couple of units are going to come down. Some Brood Spawn will decollide and maybe draw some fire. It might actually end up being a little bit more powerful than expected. The Madrigals are not on fire up. Now they are, which is obviously going to be pretty good against the Skithercore swarm that's over there. But they will be outranged by the Protathalors and also by any Bactylisks that might still be surviving. And at this point, the Phalanx line is being cleaned up, and the Madrigals are going to have to withdraw. I'm not even sure. Oh, I guess the Skithercores probably spawned Gorillalisks. And yeah, there you go. You're still getting a couple units pushed out, the Ovolith spotting for this ramp, and the Protathalor is continuing to fight against the Madrigals on the south side as the front line is starting to crumble. So Mesk, I think, unless he has a bunch of units lying around, he does have a couple of units in that third base, in the mineral heavy base, but I don't know if it's going to be enough here to riposte this attack. And even if it is, I suspect that there will be another wave soon after. It might have just been enough. The Rillarocors, the Brood Spawn, right? Triggering the mines, that is also another thing where, like, you can't even defend against that very well. So GG, and you know what? Crow number 3 taking the W after getting off to a great macro-oriented mid-game there. And we actually got to see some tier 2 units. So can you believe it? Let's check out the next one. We are back. It is Keyan versus Mesk, Game 3 on Terminus, because the whole game's on Terminus, so we had a silly scribe moment. And we also have to ally our homies. And indeed, beyond that, it's Keyan. Okay, listen, let me just level with you guys. This is not actually Game 3, this is actually Game 5. Game 3 was a secret hidden proxy star pad. It wasn't really a proxy, it was here. And Mesk destroyed him by taking advantage of the fact that he knew it would be double Circuith. And yeah, beyond that, game 4 was Keyan playing random and getting Terran and quitting. So now we are on to game 5, where Keyan has achieved Protoss. And we'll see what happens, right? Okay, what's he bringing to the table? This is the first time I've seen Protoss in a PvP game on this map. Remember, the first time we played on this map, it was ZVZ. Last 2 matches have been TVZ. So nice to end on a PvZ note. There will be a fast gateway coming out, the gateway first, fairly standard, bog standard build from way back. And maybe we'll see some proxies, maybe we'll see some cheeses, maybe we'll see some actual games. And indeed, the Mason is here just to fuck shit up. What will he do? He's taking a long ass time to actually attack this guy. And you know what? This is actually kind of dangerous because... because Keyan maybe didn't notice which worker was actually being attacked there. So that could have been bad. The Mason fucking ring around the rosy over here. We do indeed have the Fulcrum coming down, so Keyan will notice that. And Zealot being built, this worker still surviving for now. No expo, no proxy, no nothing. Maybe something over here can happen. And a Warden going down somewhat securedly. We'll just say... do that so that I actually have the info that I want to see. And then there you go. Mason on the way down. Oof. Oh, I probably hit Control Enter. I was confused there. I was like, didn't I send it just to him? Owned. But the Lattice plus another Warden for more defensive posture means that this is going to be a game where it looks like maybe Keyan is intending to be proactive, but only in the sense that it's... only in the sense that you get to see, like... vassals or something, right? Although it could be manifolds. Like, I think I've demonstrated recently that manifolds are actually pretty based. But only in games that people haven't seen on a castover. Obviously, Mesk feinting back and forth here, looking to see what he can do for a... see what he can do for a mine drag. He's just going to lay a few more, or at least one. Terran also lays eggs. Even though there's no Zerg here, we still have eggs. And this scribe has not been spotted. I'm not sure if Mesk is even aware that it's a thing. So he could be getting proxied, a taste of his own medicine. Could be getting cannoned, wardened, as it is now. And a simulacrum is out. So 75 minerals for the sim. If it takes enough damage from, say, a single vulture shot or anything like that, it drops its shields. And it is then... going to be in a situation where it's actually, splitting after a certain amount of time. So if people don't know, the reason why it's 75 minerals for such meager stats is because if you do take shield damage, or if you take hull damage, you will split after, I think, 5 seconds, or maybe it's 4 seconds now. So the Zealot is just going to come here to accept the mines. Not a terrible situation to be in. Obviously, Keyan would have liked to keep the Zealot, but it's fine to have the Zealot and then lose it to mines just to clear those out. You maybe would have wanted to build a bunch of additional units, like maybe 2 or 3 manifolds would clear mines if you come at it from the right angle, but you kind of have to know that they're there. And maybe Keyan lost track of it, or maybe he intentionally just sacked the Zealot. All fair, all sensible. Still nothing from the Scribe. Aquifer going down, so going to be some fast increased gas. The Sims are here, and Mesk specifically doesn't want to attack one of them. His Vulture would not survive the engagement, and he would just give a free Sim to Keyan. Although it would be somewhat damaged, so there is that. They do sustain hull damage, and they share it to the person that the hull, like the clone, inherits the hull damage, right? So actually, if Mesk isn't careful here, he might end up demonstrating this behavior for us, but it looks like he wants to move around and see what's up. And so this Zealot will catch him by surprise, perhaps, and he's just going to go ahead and see the presence of the Nexus here. So he will at least know that his opponent has gone for a more macro-oriented game, and he can choose either to continue to try and pressure that, knowing that he's got increased power. Yeah, this Vulture is one hit away from death. It looks like it will indeed die, without really accomplishing too much beyond the scouting, which is always important. It's always good to absolve yourself of any ambiguity. Now, these Wardens are over here, and actually there's enough Goliaths here to deal with it, although they are losing vision every now and then, so it's actually kind of causing them to tism. And he's not even going to finish that warden. He's going to allow it to get... he's going to allow it to get more HP, more shields back, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, the warden will indeed pop the first one anyway. And the second one is still in a spot to harass every now and then. It might even get a stray shot here. But it looks like, yeah, Mesk actually just wants to ignore it. He's not too worried about it. He wants to see if he can bust it down the middle. So we might actually see some Microfest, but the lower HP of these Goliaths means they're a little bit more at risk, shall we say. The bunker slows it down as well. Scribe coming down here to put a pylon down just to watch for the flank, because he knew that there were indeed Goliaths on the loose. But there's a Drakon here, and it will require some focus fire just to deal with the Drakon specifically. Instead, he's going to focus down some of the Sims. It'll just be one so far, and indeed, just because these were already lower HP and they had no healing or support, he's now trying to see if he can intercept his Goliaths with the bunker. You can actually evac units that way. So, but unfortunately, the bunker is a little bit too slow. It might cause some silliness with an A move, but it doesn't look like it. Looks like it's been force targeted. He wants to evacuate it. Oh, no, look at that. He's demonstrating it for us here. There you go. Free sim. Free sim. Hashtag free sim. Hashtag nobody on gas. Will Keyan recognize it? Yeah, I think I helped him out there. It's all right. I selected some shit inadvertently in the first two games in favor of Mesk, so it's nice to occasionally... It's a really dumb bug. I was saying earlier, what I can probably do is... and by the way, you can... I've demonstrated this to Mesk before. You can counter Proxy Warden with just landing a bunker. And repairing the bunker, obviously. So that can work. Looks like he wants to instead target the pylon without even taking damage, but I'm not sure how well that will work. He has to know his ranges. Another bunker floating around. It must send people through a tiz to know that that's even a thing. And so, yeah, he doesn't actually have range, so he's going to need to move up one spot. And even then, he might not be in range. He might be in range of the warden. Oh, no, he shouldn't be. He should actually, if he lifts it off one more, he should actually, once he lands, he should actually be okay here. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't have vision. I don't know what's going on over there. More mines being dropped here, so he's just insulating himself from any push out. And obviously, Keyan a little bit wary of the potential for any bunker shenanigans. There's more bunker shenanigans happening over here. Oh, yeah, there you go. Now he's figured it out. There's an annoying bug with some units just don't work inside bunkers unless when they've landed. Don't know why. Couldn't tell you. Anyway, this stuff will have to be canceled if Keyan wants to hold on to some money. He's going to lose the scribe. He will cancel the structures, and that will be the end of his silliness down in Mesk's side of the map. But behind this, Mesk has not expanded, although Keyan doesn't know that. And Keyan has expanded. He's got a little bit of extra mineral income at the very least, so he can continue pumping out, Draconins, these high mineral units. He can continue getting more stuff like Cenotaphs, which means he can pump. He's actually getting 3. Do we see a 4th? No, that's a pylon. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting he's going for that many. I assume he's going to be going for Legionnaires to try to see if he can get rid of the Goliaths. Obviously, Legionnaires are like the ultimate fucking mine drag unit. If you thought like Speed Zealots was bad in normal Brood War for laying mines and then getting owned by them, try Legionnaires, which literally like teleport to a target that they hit. I mean, they can get hard countered by mines because they might teleport to a mine and then not kill it, if like one of them attacks the mine specifically. But if you imagine force targeting them after they drag mines, and they move pretty fast too, so they can drag the mines, like that can be enough, right? Still a lot of Simulacrums, still a lot of Legionnaires. Indeed, that's sort of what we expected. Now we will see whether or not Keyan fully saturates that side base, whether he wants to take another one. His scribe is on the way, so we assume that that is indeed the case. And Mesk has finished setting up a single command center. Did I fuck up the resource area placement on this or something? No, so where you are guided to building the structure is actually where, like, it is valid. I just checked it in the map. I had the map open because I fixed the geysers earlier. And like, what the fuck, bro? So yeah, that's just silly. There is room over here to land. I deliberately left this open. I could have obviously painted a bunch of crevices over there, but decided not to. So we'll see what happens as a result of that. But maybe it'll be too abusive. Maybe it'll be just perfect for the kind of thing that you might want to do. There are no masons coming to repair those bunkers, but there are some vultures here that might end up getting elevated in, or maybe they're just going to lay some mines and like attack this base while the bunkers do their thing. Not a whole lot of units are in an area to respond to this, but they are moving down into the main. And so I think they can respond, right? And so there goes a couple of the Legionnaires. The bunkers are in view, but Keyan is not yet reacting. He's got his units. He's starting to move them over. And here come the Goliaths, which we'll have to unload and then re-enter, of course. I'm not sure if he knows that. He'll figure it out, I think. Will he figure it out? Maybe not. Unfortunate. Very unfortunate bug that he obviously demonstrated awareness of. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Very stupid. It's not related to turrets, by the way, because phalanxes work fine. So I have no idea why it's specifically related to, like, it's vultures and something else. But yeah, vultures, Goliaths, and maybe like one other unit. I think Cyclopses work fine. It's really weird that there's potential for something like that to happen. A group of vassals are here. That can definitely help deal with the vultures, but I don't know if I would use them for the bunkers. Well, now that they're lifted, it's totally fine. So these bunkers will go ahead and pop. The Goliaths will, unless they're over impassable terrain, which he might time it just right. Yeah, he timed it right, and those ones were not able to unload. So that is pretty good, because normally they will unload. But if you time it when they're over impassable terrain, you can game them that way. Just because the game can't find a spot to unload them, that makes sense. Now, this bunker is going to burn down, but before it does, he's going to use it as a scout, and maybe as like a, oh, fuck you, I'm back with more units. But he's not really. He's evacuated those units. The Witness is in the bottom left-hand side scouting the presence of this base, and it's doing a good job remaining still. It's actually going to be quite hard to see that, and I didn't even select it, so I didn't even reveal it either. Isn't that great? That being said, another base going down in the bottom middle. That's going to be Mesk's third. Keyan obviously down to 2 bases now, and there's a bunch of mines guarding this mineral heavy one, so it may be a while before he goes for anything else. We do have a sequestered icon, and we have an Acantor, an envoy. So we are expecting Acantor drops. A scribe is over here, and they are resetting up the base on that side. You might see him just YOLO and take a 4th as well. But he's at the very least resetting that. Now, for a rare time, Mesk will actually be ahead in the macro game for a little bit. He's also teching up. He doesn't have a super strong defense against like a frontal attack, and Keyan does have a lot of units here. Could certainly combine a frontal attack with an Acantor drop as the sequestered icon just finishes. He's probably, presumably, saving up a little bit of money to spend on the Acantor itself, and it is indeed very faintly pulsing. I'll probably need to significantly improve the, shall we say, the saturation or whatever, brightness of the color during the work animation to make it look a little bit better. So we've learned that this series, we've learned madrigals need reads, and now the sequestered icon also needs a little bit of an improvement. We'll see when I get around to doing just that. Now we do have some action coming in the form of this like fomenting Acantor drop. Obviously, Acantors work very differently than... I don't know what happened over there. Acantors work very differently than Brood War Reavers. Looks like some units are tisming over here because they can't reach the destination. Classic Brood War. And a bunch of Watchdogs going down. Now, the answer to Acantor drops is usually putting mines in a good spot to anticipate where the Acantor might drop. And at this point, I think Mesk should realize that there's a Witness there because he's going to see the distortion. The Shimmer just distorts stuff that is over, so you should actually be able to see that. And the Acantor has not yet left the building, neither has the rest of the army from Keyan. And indeed, an ant seal just popped through. I didn't see the star pad, but it was down here above the Atlas. So that will dispel any scouting attempts. It's 75 gas for a Witness. Not the most expensive thing, but something that you might want to worry about or whatever. You don't always want to continuously rebuild them. I find that they can be worth their weight in gold or in gas, as it were. Shambler said yesterday that actually gas might as well be gold in terms of its value. And now the ant seal is covering the bases. So he's doing what you probably want to do. Ant seals, I believe, are the same gas cost as Witnesses, funnily enough. So if you just put an ant seal on patrol like this, and you have Watchdogs, you can spot where the Witnesses actually are. Now, we do have a scribe moving over here. It will be intercepted by this vulture. Will it spot that there's... Okay, he's going to spot the Mason and the vulture. So he knows not just this base is being watched, but also this base is something that Mesk wants to take. Still a lot of mines covering over here, and that attack notification will tell him, hey, my units are getting pranked over here. He's actually got 2 ant seals on patrol, which is kind of funny. He doesn't need Doesn't need double coverage necessarily, but losing that stuff will indicate to him, hey, I should just take this base instead if I want to expand again. Continue to be up in bases. Certainly does work. Still no gas harvesting from the top right base. That was shut down by the Goliath bunkers. And yeah, double a Cantor, double. Okay, one of them has Dracodons, one of them has a Cantors. And I'm not sure if Mesk is aware of that. He does have a Madrigal and a Phalanx, so he has been able to start using his tech up, but none of his units are over in this location. Okay, that's a lie. Here's the... Okay, here's the Madrigal. It does get some pretty good hits on the Vassals, but they start to regenerate their shields, and the Acantors popped out and immediately started eviscerating a lot of those units, right? They gain attack speed and movement speed when the Vassals die, which did indeed serve their purpose in that particular case. And now the Phalanx is out. A couple of Madrigals, I think, with tempo down, can actually... they can go for some pretty good like outranges. You know, that's 8 range for the Acantor, but it's 12 range for the for what he's got there in that case. So that's pretty good. He will indeed need to hightail it out of there, but he's done his job, right? He's knocked down a base, so now our players are even in that sense. They've each lost a base. Isn't that something? Now, a bunch more Legionnaires are coming. I think the tech... Yeah, okay, I guess I should temper the thing that, like, it lost a base is a little bit different for Terran because they just lost the workers, right? I'm not sure if he evacuated the workers or not. But, you know, at least now it's revealed that actually, hey, Acantors are a thing. This worker didn't actually get down here because obviously it was sniped off by those Vassals. He lands it in the same fucking spot. He's actively avoiding putting it in the right spot. He put this one in the right spot this time. Right? Last game he didn't. He had it slightly down. I don't even know if I registered. I registered it. I don't know if I said it out loud. But yeah, very funny. More Vassals on the way just to snipe some stuff or see what's going on. Now Dracodon's in an Envoy. A Cantor's in an Envoy. We're going to have to wait and see whether these Goliaths will actually do anything. They're not actively being watched, but hey, the attack move was pretty good there for a second. Obviously... Okay, now the unload is coming, and yeah, the Acantors are in. It's a little bit too late there. If Mesk was more on top of that, he could have probably sniped at least one of those Envoys, and probably wouldn't have been the Acantor one just based on where they were. But that should have potentially been enough there. The Vassals are going to patrol over the middle of the map. The Goliaths are on the way, and they're going to get spotted out by these Wardens. That's going to indicate to Mesk that he needs to be careful. I don't know if that's going to indicate to Keyan that... like what's going on there. I have no idea. He's going to see that there's some Goliaths over here at the very least. They're going to just turn and fight, occupy the Vassals for a little bit of time. But these units are now unloaded and the space isn't even being harvested anyway. These two Aquifers being unused for a long while. A Sentinel just shutting down the ability to even expand to this base. And the Goliaths once again trying to operate in this particular area. You don't really want to get in close range for the Acantor because their projectile doesn't go to max range. It goes to wherever their intended destination is, right? So you kind of want to kite backwards. If you move, if you're really active and you have units that can actually move, which Goliaths maybe can't, you can just kill the support like the Dracodons and then start dancing around them. Now Keyan is starting to set up some static defense. This Goliath is mostly just here to occupy the units, but the Dracons, they're just going to pull back. And I think maybe Mesk is... Well, he's probably correct in some senses, because that is a problem with default Brood War, that sometimes Goliaths do take a little bit of time. But I don't know if that's fixed in CMBW. He might just be confused as to like which target they even hit initially. That being said, he has Madrigals. He doesn't need Goliaths. These are all tempo down. So not great, because if they were tempo up, they would have just executed all of the Vassals to begin with. Yeah, now he's got... his units over here. Some tempo down, some tempo up, a little bit of a mix there, and he can just sort of sit here and chill. The Vassals can't really shut much of that down. However, the Acantor drop is still in play. These Madrigals can probably take care of it, but if they're not watched, obviously just 2 Acantor shots will clear out most of that, if not all of that, depending on where the plasma shells go. More Acantors and another Envoy is up and operational. And yeah, these Wardens over here are going to be slowly brought down. We'll see if this drop goes... Okay, he's just going to use this to shut down this base. This base is more important for Mesk than that top left base is important for Keyan. And he might end up losing the... If he's not careful here, like, this could be pretty big disaster for the Madrigals, right? He is going to go ahead and do some moving shots, which is pretty much exactly what you want to do. He's also catching these balls, which is the opposite of what you want to do. And there you go. That will be the end of the Acantors. Actually, this Dracodon stays alive, and there's not another Madrigal here. So a little bit of botched control. One of them was still on Furia. The tempo was down. Some Tism. And we got some Madrigals coming in with the heavy hitters. Also, on on a surround of Masons, but thankfully it doesn't do too much damage. Top left base was cleared out. There was another envoy somewhere. I don't know where it went. Okay, it's still here and hasn't actually gone anywhere with the Acantors. Maybe anticipating a heavy attack. A second Sentinel being built over here, just more rudeness, honestly. And I hear a liftoff. What's lifting off? Where is it at? Nobody knows. Okay, so the barracks here is probably just going to be used as a scout. Air vision or whatever. I'm not sure. This should still be within vision, actually. And so maybe he just moves the madrigals up there and kills it. Actually, it'll be the Sentinel. And those envoys will scarper off. Always nice to save them. They are still 200 minerals, I believe. I thought about giving them a gas cost because envoys can be pretty powerful, but not 100% sure. Not sure yet. We'll see. The madrigals are actually going to pop these envoys, or at least one of them. But that sort of asynchronousness might have pranked the play that came out of this, so that's kind of interesting. What's next? Show me what's next, boys! Okay, that Sentinel just ended up getting owned. Now, you can outrange Wardens with that. And indeed it will. So he's just going to go ahead and proxy the Sentinel down there. I mean, I'm not sure what Keyan's response to that one would be. He could just sort of like... You know, the range is 10. It outranges an Acantor. He's just going to go send Legionnaires to deal with that. That's an acceptable reaction. Now, Mesk is moving across the map. He's still not expanding to that base. He's still not really fully saturated on this spot here for gas. His madrigals are going to go ahead and station themselves there for defense against any additional drops. And yeah, the vassals are now here. I'm not sure if they'll pop this. Yeah, they will slowly pop this because the Sentinel takes a little bit too long to do too much damage there. Not even killing 2. Can you believe it? Imagine if that was a watchdog instead of a vassal. Would have killed at least 3. Anseal out here for detection. Not spotting any witnesses, but will spot across the up the map there, and that will allow them to start piercing the static defense. This ridge becomes a lot less imposing then, and this base in general can be attacked into. But a Didact is here, as well as 2 Empyreans. We weren't really watching the tech. A Crucible down here to make the build times a little bit easier. Those mines still in play, no witness there, and the Didact wasn't microed, and so it ends up falling almost immediately. The Empyreans should still be enough to completely deal with this, and the stasis field was used to lock out some of the rest, but the rest of the army didn't really take advantage of that, so even though it was like 5 or 6 madrigals caught in that stasis field, it doesn't end up being too impactful. A bunch of Phalanx is not sieged over here, means that these Acantors might actually be able to do something. They're trying to chase down the Empyrean. It's not going to be quite good enough. Now it will be, and they will also lose a decent number of the madrigals in response. There's only 3 left over here, or 4 actually. There's a 4th one down there, along with a Goliath. Vulture with a couple mines. Mesk is now back at home trying to macro. Keyan feeling the pressure, perhaps. A little bit feet to the fire, but more Didacts, more Empyreans. This Didact now out. Now, when you get 2 Didacts, which each one, by the way, is 300 gas, so it's quite the investment. When you get 2 of them, they cloak each other now, which was not the case in StarCraft by default. And the reason why that breakpoint is important is obviously that means you can move 2 of them silently, unless there's detection, to a location and then recall. And that is just in and of itself very good, right? So I believe on this patch recall is 175 energy, because I didn't want to make it 200, but we'll see. Maybe it will be. I also think that like recall has a 5-second channel time now or something. So the only way that it can really be used is if you can't, if you don't see them. Recall does decloak the unit as well. So even if it is cloaked, it will decloak when it casts a spell. And yeah, he's massing up for a recall. You can see it right here. There isn't going to be another Didact, so he's not going to get it necessarily for free. But at this point, with the Didact showing, and with memories of fighting Mystery Meat, Mesk should be aware that he has to be watchful for anything like that. He's adding more Fulcrums. He has no Fountainhead yet, so that's pretty much all he can do. He does have an Anseal doing a kind of long patrol route over there to watch for anything tricky. Some Spider Mines over here are not going to actually see this. More vultures moving around in general. They are going to spot that area. And that's almost like perfect timing now, because obviously this means that Keyan, it may take a little bit of time here before Mesk returns his attention. This Watchdog will start whittling down the shields and make this Didact a lot more vulnerable. And so it could actually end up going pretty poorly. But I'm not even sure if Mesk noticed this. This might be like, is he on one, right? Now he's going to be noticing, right? Now he's under attack. The recall should be channeling any second now. He doesn't really have any units over here to stop it. And the channel is coming, and there it is. A massive amount of Protoss have just ported in to Mesk's base, and that might be the game-ending play, honestly. It comes out of nowhere, but there was so much opportunity to potentially respond to this. The rallies are kind of all over the place. Watchdogs are still firing on the vassals. A second recall going, and that will get even more action. And if that didn't seal the game before, I think maybe it's sealed now. This Didac still taking quite a few hits, but it's safe. It's just shield damage. It's but a flesh wound. Maybe a big counterattack can let Mesk clear the way. There's not really too many units here. Obviously, when you recall that many times, you don't have much. So maybe Mesk can just evacuate some stuff, start building some satellite bases. He could have maybe saved his production or saved his tech. But he's not even going to worry about that too much. He's just going to try to clear the way here. Because, admittedly, all of Keyan's stuff is located on his side of the map. So if, you know, if there's any hope here for Mesk to counteract this this deadly push, it's to force him to start moving some of his units over. Keyan's response should be to take like half of his army and move it back. That's pretty much all he needs to do. He might even just move the Didac back and recall again. We'll see if he even needs to. You know, he does have reinforcements at home. He does have to be aware of the fact that there's an Acantor. You know, Mesk is basically porting all of his effort into microing this stuff, but there's an Empyrean now. There is the Acantor, and I think that is just going to end up being GG. It is called, and Keyan will take the series 2-1, assuming we ignore the proxy Wraith, which you guys only know because I said something about it. So there you go. What a series. What a set of games. Let me know what you think about the map, what the games, about the meta, about where we're at, and that's going to be it. Obviously, if you like buying people coffees, you can use that link. And shout out to Keyan and Mesk for being good sports. Bye.